the Marrow. Now, some have bigger turnips and some have redder beet. Some have longer tiddies and girt big ears of wheat. Some have clumps of rhubarb as high as Kelly's horse, but they'll never beat our Marrow, 'cause he were 30 foot across. Now Fred's face turned to thunder when he saw it in the cart. 'Twas the biggest one he'd ever seen, and the sight upset his heart. He turned quite pale, his temper flared, his face went all aglow. He swore he'd grow a bigger one for next year's flower show. So he put in 40 rows of marrow seeds, and he stood guard every night. 'Twas he that called the doctor out when they had a touch of blight. As he watched them rows for rabbits, you could hear his old gun roar. Well, we always went down t'other way when you Fred's eyes were poor. He was stretched out fast asleep one night when summat moved close by. He slid the gun from off his lap and he let the hammer fly. Too late, he'd seen his toes were there as he let fly with both barrels. His howls woke all the neighbours up as he hopped among those marrows. Well, Fred's Auntie Nell were wild at this, so she hid behind Fred's nut tree. She pinched his marrows all but one and turned them into chutney. The one she left, he watched and watched. You've never seen anything like it. You couldn't get 100 yards. 'Twas just like Fred was psychic. Well, it all died down till flower show time last t'other end of June. We loaded Marrow on farmer's cart and got there just 'fore noon. We were lifting him off outside the hall. There were 3 of us and Matt. When the old horse shied, the Marrow rolled off and squashed the parson's cat. Then old Tom said, as he shook his head, "'Tain't going through that door. The jam be 3'2" across, and the Marrow's 6'4". Then the squire limped out from in the hall. We were terrible bad with gout. He said, "You'd better leave it there, and I'll bring the judges out." Then the vicar came from in the hall and shouted out, "Well done." When we saw the pin on that rosette, well, we all began to run. He marched up to that Marrow, and he stuck the pin in hard. Well, me arms were running fast enough, but me legs had turned to lard. They heard the bang 5 miles away. 'Twas the very thing we feared. They found the collar on the ground, but the vicar had disappeared. His wife Denise didn't seem too pleased, though she didn't turn her hair. Her hat was still perched on her head, but the rest of her were bare. They thought they'd lost the squire as well, but then we heard him shout. He'd landed in the pigsty, and the pigs had flung him out. They still talk of that flower show when the pub lights start to flicker, but there isn't a flower show any more, 'cause the hall went with the vicar.